I'm going to talk today about the tradition of doing the Hero WOD Murph on Memorial Day. I'm going to tell you kind of the mission behind how that all got started, my introduction to Murph, the impact it's had, why I think it is so popular, why it draws such a crowd, and then I have an ask for you all at the end. So I like to say I knew Michael Murphy. I knew his height, his weight, his birthday. I knew his favorite superhero, his first car. I even knew his social security number. Yeah, I knew him, but I never met him. I was tasked with the rescue and recovery of the men of Operation Red Wings. It was a long chain of events that had me end up in that mission and on that mountain back in 2005. I was a brand new med student. I had started med school in August of 2001 and had just re-enlisted in the Air Force Reserves on September 9th, 2001. I thought, what could go wrong, you know? I still loved being a PJ and I loved being in medicine, but I wanted to continue being a pararescue specialist, and so I re-enlisted September 9th, 2001, and then 2 days later, of course, plans changed. I struggled with deploying, with leaving medical school and deploying, but ultimately I ended up staying in medical school and missing out on a couple of deployments. Well, our team was activated again in 2005, and this time we were going to Afghanistan. And I was graduating medical school in May, on May 13th, in fact, 2005. And so I volunteered to go to Afghanistan. Basically the next day I said I was available. So with the ink still drying on my medical degree, I deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan as an enlisted PJ, making me probably the only enlisted medical doctor in the history of the armed services. Throughout the rotation, I transitioned between pararescue, combat search and rescue, and working at the Kandahar Army Hospital. The rotation was coming to an end. It was June 28th, and I was literally packing my gear, thinking about my new life as a medical doctor, when we got a call on the radio that said to present to the command. When I walked in, I knew something was tragically wrong, and I was briefed that an Army Chinook helicopter had just been shot down in northern Afghanistan, and that they needed us to go in and do the rescue. So I unloaded all my gear and got back into the game, and we flew up north to Bagram Air Force Base, where we were briefed that the Army helicopter that was shot down was in fact a part of a rescue mission for a 4-man SEAL team that was still missing. And now it was our job to go and rescue the SEALs that had called in for rescue because they had come under extreme enemy fire. So we searched all night. We flew through the Hindu Kush all night looking for any signs of life from these guys. And we did that for 4 days. As hope was kind of dwindling, you know, as time goes by, you start to lose hope. On that 4th day, we caught a break. We got a letter from one of the SEAL members, or one of the SEAL teams. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Luttrell had written a note, and a village elder delivered it to the Army base. And it read that he was injured, he was being cared for by this Afghani village, but that the Taliban were closing in and he needed rescue. So that night on July 2nd, 2005, under the cover of darkness, I was the team leader for the pararescue team. We were a two-helicopter formation with A-10 cover and AC-130 gunship also providing cover. We flew back into the Hindu Kush and landed on what looked like a postage stamp on the side of a cliff. After almost crashing the helicopter, as soon as it landed, we opened the door and just stepped out into chaos. The helicopter had kicked up all the dust and the dirt from the area. Visibility was almost zero. We were on night vision goggles. There was tracer fire coming down and going up. And to the rear of the aircraft, I saw two figures approaching. And I knew, a Navy SEAL would know better than to walk into the rear of a helicopter. So I lifted my weapon and I looked through my sights to see if I could get a better picture. And I kept thinking, good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. And I noticed that they were both wearing Afghani garb. So I flicked the safety off of my weapon and put my finger on the trigger. And they kept approaching, and I kept thinking, good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. And I saw one of them had a rifle. So as I'm squeezing the tension out of my trigger, I hear on my headphone, "This is our precious cargo." So I exhale, I put the safety on, and we grab Marcus, and the other person that was with him was his kind of caretaker, Gulab. We took them both, and we put them on the helicopter, and we got out of there. When we brought him back to friendly soil, Marcus Luttrell told us that he was, in fact, the lone survivor of Operation Red Wings. Next would be excuse me, after 17 years, that still gets to me. Next would be a rescue or a recovery mission. So on the 4th of July, 2005, we flew back into the Hindu Kush, and this was the mission where I thought we would be shot down. The Taliban knew where the bodies were. They knew we were coming, and they were pissed that we had just grabbed Marcus from under their noses. So that night we flew back in, and we recovered Michael Murphy and his teammate Danny Dietz, and brought them back to friendly soil. About a week later, I was knee-deep in my medical internship and trying to process, using my mental health, trying to get that all in line, and really just had this feeling of sadness about the loss. And that was something that just stuck with me, and clearly it still sticks with me. But in 2007, I started CrossFit, and I noticed on the Hero WOD board, it said Murph. And I thought, is that the same Murph that I recovered? And turns out that it was. And I thought, that looks horrible. And I was right. So in 2007, on Memorial Day, I did my first Memorial Day Murph. I dug out the body armor that I used on the recovery mission. And I did that for two reasons. One, just to remind me of what Michael and his team and everybody else went through. But second, and probably more importantly, between you and me, that body armor is only about 16 pounds, and it's supposed to be 20 pounds. So I feel like I'm getting away with something there. Anyway, I did Memorial Day. I did Murph on Memorial Day that first year in 2007, and it was awesome. It gave me a sense of accomplishment. It made me feel like I did something to remember all of those who had fallen. It gave meaning to Memorial Day. Memorial Day for me before was usually spent drunk and depressed, but I was invigorated. You know that feeling you get. The next year, I convinced the entire gym to do Memorial Day Murph, and it was awesome, right? The synergy, just the energy that came from that, everybody working toward a shared goal and suffering for those who had fallen, was awesome. And I knew we were onto something. In 2010, my wife and I moved to Arizona, and we brought the concept of Memorial Day Murph to our new gym. And this year we started a fundraiser where we would raise some money for some veterans charities. And after we did that, then I realized that this should be a national tradition. Like, everybody should be doing this. And it was time to go national. And I didn't want to do anything in Michael Murphy's name without his family's consent. So I reached out to Dan Murphy, his father, and I kind of pitched the idea. And I remember him saying back to me, he said, "So let me see if you got this right. You're going to charge people money to do Michael's workout at their own gym." "Yes, sir. That's the idea." He said, "Good luck with that." I took that as a yes, and I ran with it. That first year, we had about 7,500 participants with nothing other than a Facebook page and word of mouth. The next year, we had about 10,000. And as my wife and I were stuffing T-shirts into envelopes for weeks on end, we realized that this was no longer a mom and pop operation, and we needed some professional help. That's when we had Forged, the clothing company, get involved. The owner is a retired SEAL who was one of Michael Murphy's teammates, so it was a perfect blend and a nice transition. They now call it the Murph Challenge, but the premise is the same. So what started out as a CrossFit workout has now spread to schools and other gyms and fire departments and police departments, and really taken off. And I think it's because of a lot of what these talks have talked about, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the sense of community. And plus, like I said, it gives Memorial Day meaning. You go out and you suffer for those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I really believe that's why it's taken off. So my ask to you all, because I look at you all as ambassadors for this, and my goal is to get as many people doing Murph on Memorial Day as possible, but not to be intimidated. Now, I know none of you all are intimidated by this, but there are those who are. And it's not really about doing this workout. You can modify this and do what you can do. The idea is that you make it tough, right? You set a goal that's harder than you think you can do. It's more about the effort than doing a PR. So I ask you all to get into your community and just encourage people to do their own version of Murph. Let's see. Enough of that guy. So this was Memorial Day 2021. Those are my twin girls who are 9 and my dad who is 90. My parents visited us on Memorial Day. And I said, "Dad, I'm going to make you a Murph." And he said, "No." And so we modified a Murph. He did a mile on the assault bike, and then he did wall push-ups, and then he did a modified ring row squat thing, and then he did another assault bike, and he said it sucked. And I was like, "Great, you did it right." So that just goes to show you, anybody can do a Murph. It's just, what is your Murph? I don't know where I'm supposed to point this thing. All right. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for your time. If you want to contact me, if any compliments, you can email me. Any complaints, use Twitter, because I don't really look at that. But thank you so much for your time.